Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of The Monsters Den. We've got another review episode for you for something that's kind of pertinent to the Monsters Den topic, right? Horror films, things like that. This is actually a book review. A book that has just come out from a very old, longtime friend of mine. The author's name is Bill Fleck. The book, I wanted to say album because we talk about music so much here on the channel. The book is titled Chaney's Baby, Lon Jr., The Wolfman 1948, and the End of a Dream. So this particular book, as you can see right there, on April 22nd, 1948, noted horror film star Lon Chaney Jr., star of the Wolfman, tries to commit suicide. While his life hangs in the balance, his wife, attorney, and agent attempt damage control. But the question remains, why would one of the more successful actors in Hollywood history, aged only 42, try to take his own life? Author and lifelong Chaney fan Bill Fleck believes he has the answer. Chaney's Baby tells his heartbreaking story. If you're a fan of the old Universal monster films and you hold in high regard the work of Lon Chaney Jr., otherwise known as Creighton Chaney by his birth name, the son of Lon Chaney Sr., this is a really fun, interesting book. It's roughly just under 200 pages. It tells the story of Lon Jr. or Creighton Chaney's upbringing, living with his father, and then trying to get out from his father's shadows. Deciding early on after his father had passed away that he wanted to become an actor as well, even though his father had, basically said, you are never going to follow my footsteps as an actor. I want you to do better things in life. And once Lon Sr. had passed away, Creighton decided to make a go of it in the film business, eventually convinced by many people to use his father's name and go under Lon Jr., even though deep down inside he really did not want to do that. He wanted to make a name for himself as Creighton Chaney. But it was as Lon Chaney Jr. that he really would start to become a major player in Hollywood and specifically in horror films for Universal, which obviously his father worked for as well. And this takes you through a lot of the early roles. Of course, his big breakthrough in Of Mice and Men, where he plays Lenny. Great character, who's nominated for an Academy Award, did not win, but nominated. And then it goes into, the films like Mad Made Monster for Universal, The Wolfman, and Frankenstein meets The Wolfman, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein. Really interesting stories about Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein on the set, things like that. But, more importantly, other than his roles in those films, Son of Dracula, the various Mummy films and whatnot, this talks a lot about all the things going on behind the scenes that led to potentially Lon Jr. wanting to commit suicide. I mean, he all sorts of things going on. The battle with his stepmother for his father's estate, and multiple marriages, an alcohol problem, things going on with his children. You name it. He did not have an easy life. Getting fired from Universal, dropped from Universal, hooking up with other film studios, back to Universal, wanting better roles, but yet always getting typecast as for playing Lawrence Talbot in various monsters. And I think all these things that were going on with his life, according to Bill Fleck, probably contributed to him just being really tightly wound up and just thinking, maybe nothing's going right in my life. And then the fateful day where he does try to commit suicide, and they take him to the hospital and he winds up getting out of that. They try to sweep it all under the rug because you don't really hear a lot about this whole suicide thing, right? You hear a lot of stories about Lon Jr.'s life and what have you, but that's something, and even like Bill doesn't get a lot into that, but he does it in a way where a lot of the things that happened before that fateful day, it's more of kind of like speculating on, what was the breaking point for Lon Chaney Jr. And a really, really great read with lots of interview snippets from throughout the years. And that's from, all sorts of people that were involved in and around Lon Jr.'s life. A lot of kind of behind the scenes tidbits, again, taken from documents and sources and interviews about the various films and things like that. And while he seemed like a very charming and good-natured person, on one side, based on his demons. Apparently he was, when he was drinking, it was a different story, but always a prankster, always a joker, but someone who, and there's lots of kind of statements from people he worked with on various films. That's like, with Lon Chaney Jr., you had to make sure you were going to get whatever you could out of him before like 1 p.m. in the afternoon, because after that, the booze comes out, and by the end of the afternoon, he barely knew who he was. So that, basically kind of summed up, a lot of the stories that we've heard from Lon Chaney Jr. throughout. But a really cool book, and it's all text. There's no photographs or pictures in here. But I think if you're interested in the professional life and even the private life of Lon Chaney Jr., otherwise known as Creighton Chaney, I think this will be a really fun read. I'm a huge fan of Chaney Jr., and love all those films, love all those roles he played. Most specifically Lawrence Talbot, otherwise known as the Wolfman, is obviously my favorite, I'm sure most people's. But, alongside guys like Bela Lugosi, there's some interesting stories of when he worked with Lugosi and Karloff and would appear in places with them, right? How there was this kind of like, all three were like very wary of each other, and really interesting if you have an interest in and a fascination for this era in horror filmmaking. So a very, very cool book. I will put, you could probably order this on Amazon and all the various places below. I'll try to get you some links below. But Chaney's Baby, Lon Jr., The Wolfman, 1948, and The End of a Dream. And it goes all the way up to the end of his life, although Bill doesn't go into lots of detail about like kind of the latter years where he was just basically taking on any role that he could possibly get. He does touch on that a little bit, but most of this book is centered on the glory years from like the mid 30s through like the end of the 40s, which is probably what most people are interested in anyway. So yeah, check it out. Bill Fleck, another great job from Bill. He also, we've reviewed here on the channel, he wrote a great book called Gimme a Show, which is a biography of James Pankow from the band Chicago. He also has a Jeff Bridges book as well. So check it out. Chaney's Baby, Bill Fleck. Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. So thanks for watching, everybody, here on this special review edition of the Monsters Den. We'll see you later on with our regularly scheduled Monsters Den programming. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.